welcome to Let's Paint, acrylic painting classes for beginners of all ages. I'm Victoria Gobel, and in each video I will be teaching you techniques step by step to a completed acrylic painting. In each class we will have two students learning alongside you. Today we have Lynn and Denny. Today we will be painting this beautiful mason jar and red poppies. Before we get started, let's go over the colors you're going to use in this painting. Pull out your yellow ochre, burnt umber, phthalo green, phthalo blue, hooker's green hue, ultramarine blue, cad yellow light, alizarin crimson, cad orange, cad red light, and of course, white. There's also a couple of other things you're going to need for this painting, like a little sponge, a ruler, some tape, and a piece of paper. So let's get started. First, we have to block in yellow ochre over our entire painting. So take out your big brush, okay, and go ahead and dip it in the water. And make sure you have some paper towels on the side and wipe your brush. You don't want it dripping. And dip it right in the yellow ochre. And this just kind of makes the paint a little bit smoother. Go ahead and dip your brush back in the water and put it back in your paint. We don't want the paint thick. And when you feel like it's kind of a thick, creamy texture, go ahead and start blocking in the entire canvas, okay? And this doesn't have to be fancy. You are just gonna kind of swish it around and make sure that the entire canvas is covered. I'm going to dip my brush in a little bit more water and make it a little bit more watery. This just makes a nice underpainting, and we'll want to see some of this dark color coming through our painting in the end. All right. Isn't this a pretty color? Like I said, it doesn't have to be fancy. We're just trying to cover the entire canvas. If you feel your paint's thick, just add some more water. Just dip your brush right in the water and put it right back in your paint. And keep going. Looks like I need a little bit more paint, so I'm going to just add some to my palette and add some more water to it. All right, we're all done blocking in the main background color. So take your brush, put it in your water, and this is a good time to take a break and go make yourself a snack because this has to dry completely before we go to the next step. Okay, so clean out your brushes really good if you haven't already, and we have to draw the table line on our canvas. So you're going to take out your ruler If you are working with a 16 by 20 canvas like I am, I want you to mark 5.5 inches from here to here and from here to here. So I'll go ahead and measure 5.5 inches from the bottom all the way up to here. And do it on the other side. Okay, and now we're going to take the ruler and we're going to take it and draw it straight across. If you're working with an 11 by 14 canvas like Denny and Lynn, you're going to want to measure 3.5 inches from the bottom and up. So take your rulers and measure your line. Okay, now pull out your Scotch tape and run a strip along the top of a piece of paper running landscape ways. This piece is good for an 11 by 14, but you're going to need a bigger piece of paper if you're doing a 1620 like me. So what you'll want to do, and you guys can just grab your paper, we're going to take it and with the sticky side pointing towards our canvas, we're going to take that tape and run it underneath our line. All right, now start pressing down. You want to really make sure that that's pressed down nice and firm, because what we don't want to do is get paint on the lower side of our painting. This is our table and then this is our wall. Of course, your canvas should be nice and dry, so it should stick pretty well. If it doesn't stick, it means you need to dry your canvas a little bit more. So let's make our background color. Take your large brush, okay, and let's just scoop some white and put it in the middle of your palette, and go ahead and dip your brush in some of the yellow ochre, and let's mix those two together to get a nice creamy color. Okay, I'm going to add some more yellow ochre to this. Right. And let's put a tiny bit of burnt umber, which is that dark brown. I want a kind of a nice earthy color. Okay, while we're mixing colors, take your palette knives. We're going to make a second color that's going on the background. So take some more yellow ochre and a little dab of burnt umber, and this time don't put white in this mixture. It's just burnt umber and yellow ochre. Okay, so you should have a lighter tone and a deeper tone ready to fill in your background. This is a good time to take out your water spritzer and spritz your palette. We don't want those paints getting thick and dry. So now that I have my two colors mixed for my background, I'm going to start with the lighter color, and I'm only going to work on the center part of our background. And so what I want to do is just brush from side to side, not up and down and across. We want to go in diagonal motion, keeping a few of these. See how you can see a little bit of the yellow ochre coming through? Don't cover it up solid. We want to see a little variation. So go ahead and start blocking in the lighter tone. Crisscross, up and down, side to side. Just don't go in one direction. Go right over the tape. It'll come out nice and straight when we take that tape off. All the way to the top. But don't do the sides. We want to kind of keep an arch shape for our next color. Okay, I'm about ready to start with my deeper tones. I'm going to dip my brush in a little bit of water and dip it into the deeper tone, and I'm going to start with the corners first and the sides. Don't let it touch the white part yet. And as you can see, I didn't even rinse out my brush when I went to the next color because I want to see some variations of colors blending into each other. Okay, I'm getting close to my white, and that's good because I just want to blend it right in. Just brushing from side to side, wet on wet. We're just blending it in, kind of softening our edges. And it should look something like this. I'm just about done. I'm going to dip my brush right inside of my lighter background shade and go ahead and do the center. I want the center to be the lightest part and the edges to be the darkest part. Still showing a few little pockets of our background color. All right. Okay, so I'm going to call this done. This has to dry really well, so take another break, make a phone call, check your emails, and come right back. While you're waiting for your background to dry, this is a good time to change your water. I mean, mine's pretty mucky. So go to the sink or your bathroom and clean out your brushes really good because we need to start with a whole new color. Now that your background is nice and dry, take your canvas off of your easel and lay it on a flat surface. Take your large brush and put it into the burnt umber. We want the paint to be somewhat watery. Okay? I'm going to keep my paper towel close by so I don't drip. But what we're going to do is a fun little technique that I like to do where I take my paintbrush and I flick little brown spots all over. And this just gives it more texture. I don't like this great big spot that I have, so with my sponge I'm just going to take that off And I'll take this one off over here. I want to keep my spots pretty small. So I'll go back to flicking my paint. This is fun. Okay. You can see why we have to cover it with paper down below. We don't want to get that on our table. This is kind of messy, so beware, you're going to get paint on your fingers and on your table. And it looks like I even got paint on my painting tubes, but that's okay. And when you're done, take your brush and put it in your water and clean it out. This has to dry really well, so let's go ahead and take our blow dryers out and get this nice and dry so we can work on the bottom. Okay, we're back. Take your canvases and put them back on your easel. And let's go ahead and take that paper right off. Look at that nice clean line that you have. Okay, take your alizarin crimson and just put a tiny little dab of it next to your blue. Take your palette knives out and you're going to dip it in a little bit of that phthalo blue, a little bit of the alizarin crimson. What we're trying to create is kind of a muddy purple color. And so I'm going to scoop up some white and let's go ahead and mix it right inside this lighter background color that we have left over. You see how this is kind of muddy? It's not a true color, it's more of a muddy color. So it should look a little bit like a periwinkle, which is a blue lavender. Okay? Now, take your large brush and dip it right into your white. And we're just going to go ahead and cover the bottom half of our painting. Again, you want to leave little bits of that gold showing through. This gives it motion. Now, if you're not comfortable painting in that straight line, please feel free to take your tape out and run it alongside the top this time. And that way you don't have to worry about painting in a straight line. And since it's dry, it'll look nice and clean. So now I'm just going to go right over the tape . You see how you can see some of my background color coming through? That's actually a good thing. Okay? I'm not going to clean my brush. I'm going to take it and dip it right inside of that blue. I'm going to dip it into some water. It seems like it's a little bit thick. Okay. Now I'm just going to take this and run it along the edges. Maybe even along the top. Just sort of blend this all in. Now this is supposed to be fabric, so I kind of want to have a motion of it going across. So I'm just going to sort of glide my brush in that direction. But I want to keep some white parts. Don't make it totally all blue. In fact, I think I'll just take this brush and dip it right in the white. Okay. Okay, I like where my painting is right now, so I'm going to go ahead and take the tape off. Look at how clean this line is. Okay, this has to dry really well. Take your brush, put it back in your water, clean your brush out really good, and go get a snack, take a break, because this has to dry really well before we can sketch on the jar. Okay, we're back. Our background and our table is nice and dry, so it's time to draw on our mason jar. Now, if you feel comfortable enough drawing your mason jar on a piece of paper and cutting it out, that's fine. But if you don't, you can go to my website and I'll have a PDF of this mason jar in 2 sizes so that you can cut it out if you're doing a 16 by 20 or 11 by 14. So Lynn and Denny, hold up your jars. You can see how different our sizes are. So we're ready to draw the jar onto the canvas. Take a pencil. Now, a good composition is somewhere off to the side. It can be to the right side, it can be to the left side. Just don't take your jar and put it right in the center. So I'm going to go ahead and take mine off to the side. Now remember, it's sitting on top of a table. So you don't want to take your jar and put it like this on the top. It has to come down so that it looks like it's sitting on your table. And I think I like that position. So take your pencil and start drawing it on. Okay. Make sure you can see that pencil mark, but you don't have to press really hard. Lift up and see if I can see it. Yep, I can see the pencil mark. There you go. All right, take a smaller brush and let's wet it first. Dip it in that lavender color that you made, but add a little bit more blue to it. A little bit more of that phthalo blue. Okay. And let's go ahead and take a tiny, tiny bit of this burnt umber, not a lot. We're trying to make a shadow color right now. So it should be a little bit on the muddy side. Okay. And make sure it's not thick and dry. It should be watery. So what you're going to do now is we're going to create a shadow that's underneath our jar. So what I'm going to do is just draw with my paintbrush the shape of the shadow, fill it in. Then I'm going to take that sponge that I have and I'm going to blend it right into. I don't want it to be perfect. And I'm going to go ahead and just sponge the entire thing so that it looks nice and soft. And I have to clean up my edges right here. There. That'll be the shadow underneath the jar. Rinse out your brush. Next, we're going to sketch in our stems. I'm going to use a piece of chalk, but you can use a pencil if you'd like. And all I'm going to do is draw loosely some stems. I'm going to go with 5 because I like working with odd numbers. You can do 3, 7, 5, whatever you like. If you'll notice, I have some that have come out off to the side. That makes for a more attractive composition. So next we're going to draw our flowers. And I'm going to pull out my chalkboard right now just so that you can see all the different directions you can make your petals. Let's sketch some petals. Now, every flower should look different. Don't try to make them look exactly the same. We're drawing poppies today. So I'll start with this one right here. Since it's going down, I'll want to have my petals start like this first. And then maybe do another one and another one off to the side. Maybe even one in the background. I want to have one of my flowers be completely open. So I'll go ahead and start with this petal, this petal, this petal, Look how each one is a different size too. Okay? Then I want to do some petals that are kind of semi-open. So I'll kind of pinpoint that that's my middle right there. Okay, Lynn and Denny, I forgot to tell you that poppies have these really funny looking buds. And so you're going to want to draw a couple of those where it's not, this isn't going to be red, this is actually going to all be green. So it's kind of fun to do a couple of those. I'll go ahead and draw one here. Maybe another one that's hiding in the back. And then I'll go ahead and do another flower here. There. So I'm going to take this down and draw these on my canvas now. And then we'll get busy painting our poppies. Okay, now that you've drawn your flowers and your stems onto the painting, let's go ahead and take our medium-sized brush and we're going to dip it in the water and put it right inside of our Hooker's green. Now don't worry about having a steady hand, okay? Just start from the top of where your flower is and let it glide down. I'm going to stop there because I have a flower right there. Sometimes I use my pinky to lean against the canvas and it helps me to hold it still. So I'm going to go all the way down into the jar. While you're painting your stems, make sure that you go a little bit thicker when you get towards the flower. Just a little bit, not a lot. If you find that your paint is drying up, just dip your brush in water. And don't forget to do your pods. Okay, I'm all done with my stems. So I want to take some of that leftover color that I used on my background. Don't rinse your brush out. Just take it and dip it right inside of that background color. I'm going to take a little bit more green. So I want a lighter shade of the green that I just used for my stems. And I'm going to go ahead and just put it in the center. And then just in a few places, these are highlights. Just one stroke will do it. All right, now take your tiny little brush and dip it inside of the straight Hooker's green, and we're just going to give our little pods some little prickles right here. They're almost like little tiny stickers coming out. You're going to take that lighter color that you put in the center of your stems and do some of those little tiny stickers in that color, just to give it a little bit of dimension. Okay, rinse your brush out and let's get busy painting our poppies. Okay, let's get busy painting our poppies. Now, get a clean palette and put some cad red light, cad orange, cad yellow light, alizarin crimson, teeny tiny bit of the Hooker's green, burnt umber, and ultramarine blue. So, let's start by taking our cad red and mix a tiny bit of white in it. That's just going to make it thicker. Don't put a lot of white. We still want to keep it bright red. Now I'm going to go ahead and start blocking in my flowers. Go ahead and fill the entire flower. Okay, let's clean out our brushes and let's stick it in the cad orange. Don't mix this with any other colors. You're going to start with the top of each petal and brush down. We should be painting wet on wet. Don't let this dry. You can put it on nice and thick if you'd like. I'm almost done with this phase here. So this is a good time to let this dry a little bit before we move on to any more detail. Okay, so rinse out your brush really good and take a little break. All right, this is dry, so I'm going to go ahead and take my cad orange and mix it with some yellow and a little cad red. I want to do a really bright color. So yellow, orange, and cad red. Look how pretty that is. It's nice and bright. And now all I'm going to do is just hit the edges of my flowers, just to give them a little bit more of a highlight. If you want to take your finger and blend it in, you can do it that way. Get a softer shadowing. And you can see how the highlights are making the darker part look deeper, like they're going inwards, and that's what we want to do. If you want to add more yellow to even make it brighter, please feel free to experiment with your colors. Okay, that's a good stopping point. So I'm going to take my brush and take the alizarin and mix it with a little cad red. And we're going to make a really nice dark tone. Alizarin and cad red. This is so pretty. Now we're going to do the same thing, except we're going to do the center of our flower. So I'm going to find the center of my flower, and then I'm going to use my finger to blend it out. I always like to do a little finger painting in all of my paintings. I'm also going to want to do the bottom of these just to give it a little bit more depth. Maybe I want to kind of show up one of my petals, so I'll come along here on the side. All right, let's go back over to this one. Come along the bottom. This petal is coming right in front of this flower, so I want to make sure that I kind of outline that right there. Alrighty. We're almost done with our flowers. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Rinse out your brush and take that tiny little paintbrush and mix burnt umber with a tiny bit of ultramarine blue. That makes the perfect black, by the way. So if you're ever wanting to make black, just take those two colors and mix them. We want a nice dark center because we're going to take that color and we're just going to dot it in the center. And then as you come out, just make fewer dots. Very heavy in the center though. Make sure it's pretty dark in the center. I call that one done. Come on over here. Just little dots to Here we go. We'll go do this one now. Almost done with the center. While it's wet, clean my brush, and I'm going to take white and a little bit of cad yellow, light, mix the two together, and I'm going to go ahead and put a few of those. Not a lot, just a little, just to kind of give it a little bit more dimension. Look how sweet that looks. All right, so I think my flowers are done. I see one little part of my stem that I forgot to bring all the way behind. This is a good time to maybe hit some darker areas on our stems if you wish. If you like the way your stems look, then don't do anything to them. Okay, all right, I'm gonna stop now. Rinse out your brush and we'll get ready to do our mason jar. Okay, we're ready to do our mason jar. So take a little bit of your phthalo blue and just a tiny bit of phthalo green, not a lot. The two look so nice together. And let's go ahead and scoop in some white. And let's take those three and mix them together. You should get a really pretty turquoise color. If you use just the blue, it would be too blue. If you use the green, it would be too green. And I think I want to add just a tiny bit more green to this mixture. I'm looking more for an aqua color. We're doing an aqua mason jar. Okay, now I'm going to add a lot of water, and that water doesn't look very clean, so I'm going to go ahead and just use the water from my spritzer bottle. I want it to be thin, not thick, because we're going to make our jar look transparent, like real glass. So I'm going to add a little bit more water to that. Let's see, that looks good. It's kind of like thicker than milk. That's a good consistency. So I'm going to take my big paintbrush. Have your sponge ready because you're going to need it. All right, I can see the pencil mark on my canvas. So what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and go right over everything, staying in the lines of my drawing. If your paint starts dripping, then you made it a little too thin. So just go ahead and add some more paint to it. Now I'm going to fill it up. And then take my sponge. I'm going to put a little bit of paint on my sponge just so it's not so dry. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start rubbing. I want to get a translucent look. See how you can see the stems right through it? Well, that's good because it's supposed to be glass. And let's go ahead and just give it the bottom that it needs. I'm going to go ahead and use the dry side just to take off a little bit more. Stop right there and let it dry really well. Okay, now we're going to take some white and mix it with that jar color. Okay. Now we want to do the shine marks in the jar. So these are the ridges in the jar. So I'm going to want to just go real quick. Maybe even take my finger and blend it in. Definitely want to come along the side of the jar because there would definitely be a shine coming down there. Okay, definitely on the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and pick a spot like right about here. And then one right here. And then I'm going to take just straight white. Not even going to clean that brush out. Just take some straight white and just hit it right in a few places. Just to highlight a few more areas. Then I'm going to stop. Don't overwork it, okay? We're almost done. We only have left is our little cord. And so we're going to take some burnt umber and some of our yellow ochre, more burnt umber and less yellow ochre. Okay? This one you sort of just have to freehand it, and I think it just looks better that way. So we're just going to come down, and I'm going to do a little bow. And that's simple because it's just a loop, a loop. And I'm going to just take my paintbrush, dip it in a little bit of straight yellow ochre, and I'm just going to put a few highlights. And that's all. Okay. Sometimes colored glass reflects on the surface that it's sitting upon. So I'm going to take my sponge and I'm going to dip it in a little bit of that mason jar color, not a lot. In fact, I'm going to wipe most of it off of the paper towel. So the glass is reflecting a little bit on my table and I want that to show. So I'm going to go ahead and just put a little bit on the table just so that it looks like the glass is reflecting through the light. Pretty turquoise blue color. And that's it. I'm not going to work that very much, just going to leave it like that. So as you can see, I have some chalk marks, and that comes off very easily with a wet sponge. So I'm going to take off all those little marks that I have that are from my chalk. There we go. And the only thing left to do is sign your painting, and voila, you're done. So let me take a paintbrush. We'll use a fine paintbrush. That always works best when you're signing a painting. And I think I'm going to sign it in that cad red light, just because I think it'll show up a lot. I want my name to show up on there. Make sure that your paint is watered down. And I always say, dip, do a letter, dip, do a letter. Don't try to do it all in one dip. Okay? So I'm just going to, there's my V. it. So it looks like we're all done. We have 3 beautiful paintings, and Danny and Lynn, thank you so much for joining me today. By the way, they are married, so grab your husband or your wife and your boyfriend or girlfriend or sisters or brothers and everybody get together and paint with me. If you like this video, please go to my website and subscribe to my YouTube videos and to my blog, which you can find on my website at www.letspaintwithvictoriagobel.com. You can also follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Thanks for coming, and we'll see you next time. Bye!